It's been a long time coming, but we finally have confirmation from Red Bull that they have given a fee to BMW for Sebastian Vettel. Right at the very start of the season, Sebastian Vettel was set to join BMW and become their new team principal. But in the end, he decided to go ahead and take up a racing seat once again with Red Bull Racing after Valtteri Bottas' surprise move away from the team to go and join McLaren. With that being said, Vettel then went ahead and joined Red Bull, but BMW was stating that they needed a fee for this to go ahead. Vettel actually went ahead and signed a contract with BMW before then becoming a driver again, and what Vettel didn't realise is that he'd effectively signed pretty much all of the paperwork, and one of the clauses within the paperwork was allowing BMW to take a fee from anybody that decided to go ahead and take Vettel in case he opted out. BMW sneakily put this clause into the contract because there were not only one team interested in signing Sebastian Vettel to go for a race seat, which was Red Bull, but there was a second team as well, with a third team looking to take him on as a team principal role as well. So with Vettel being a hot topic, BMW decided with all of the work that they've done into this, that if anybody takes him, they've got to pay for it. Red Bull weren't aware of this at the time, and Sebastian Vettel actually forgot that this was part of the contract, admitted that it was his own mistake, and said to Red Bull that this was the case. Red Bull then got it all cleared up and have agreed a fee, and they have gone ahead and taken him away from BMW, and the debt has now been paid. And now taking a look at the race news heading into the weekend, it was Aston Martin and McLaren that were the two fastest teams going into these practice sessions, which bodes well for them going into the weekend, with Porsche looking pretty quick as well after a tough few races. Now, despite Aston Martin and McLaren being the fastest in practice, for a lot of teams, oversteer is a big issue around here. With the winds blowing, it's causing the back ends to step out. It seems a lot more so on teams from Aston Martin, Jaguar and Mercedes from what we have seen so far. But Jaguar, despite the issues with the oversteer from the wind sensitivity, still look pretty handy around here and could definitely be in contention once again for some possible points finishes. But all teams are going to be keeping an eye on the radar, as rain is set to cause a problem throughout the course of the weekend. As things stand, it is currently due and forecasted for race day, but whether it will make an appearance during the race or just after is something that the teams are still unsure of as we go into the Portuguese Grand Prix. Yo, what's going on, guys? It is Foxydude here, and welcome back to a brand new video and another episode of the F1 journey for you guys today here on the channel. Today we're here for the Portuguese Grand Prix. If you guys end up enjoying today's video, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well. I want to start off this episode by apologising. I recorded this race, I then captured all of the replay camera footage as I do afterwards, and then I went to start editing the video, this video a day afterwards, and I lost every piece of replay camera footage apart from the first lap. It all just corrupted, the recording just went to crap basically, and I lost it all. So unfortunately this race is shorter because it's just my own perspective. I can't show anybody else's perspective, so I do apologise about that. Next time around, I will do the non-clumsy thing and click save full race replay in order for me to not have that problem in the future. But obviously when I'm recording the races, I can't check if the if the footage is okay, because I'm recording it on basically on my PC on the same monitor, so I can't view it. So yeah, it's just like a sort of 50-50 hit and miss there. So I do apologise about that, but you know, it is what it is. At the end of the day, when you've been making videos as I have now for 10 years, and that's still weird to say, it's not going to be one of those where you're going to be faultless all the time. You're going to have a couple of problems. But anyway, speaking of problems, we had a problem on our first lap in qualifying. Well, not our first lap, but our second lap in qualifying. So as you can see, we recharged the batteries after going into the gravel and went for another run here. But even this run didn't quite go to plan, as I messed up the first part of this double right-hander, and then the second part I went wide. We're still about a half a tenth up though on our previous best lap, so it's kind of worth finishing the lap. The issue that I've got is that I don't have much ERS, and then the back end comes out on me again through the second part of this sort of roller coaster middle sector, and it just puts me in a whole lot of problems. I then clip the curb, and effectively I've thrown away this lap. I'm just not quick enough, and we're just, well, losing more and more time. The tyres are obviously gone off a bit. There's not enough battery in the car, and I've made too many mistakes. So unfortunately, we have to abandon the lap, but there's definitely pace in the car. As was said in the practice preview, there's a lot of issues with oversteer, and I was definitely suffering with it massively. The back end was stepping out on me in so many corners on this track, and it was just about If I can keep it together, then I'm okay. But it's easier said than done right now. So we've got one more flying lap to do something. We're P18 at the moment, so we need to get a good lap on the board here. So in towards turn 1 we go, dropping it down into 7th gear, clipping the apex on the exit there quite nicely, and now down in towards the next portion of the track here, getting a much better run through the curve. This is a corner where you definitely have to be sensitive on the throttle because the back end does step out on you, but we found 4.5 tenths per second purple through the first sector here as George Russell goes on to provisional pole, and we get a nice run there through the hairpin as again you can see my game there slowing down a little bit. Now we've got to go for these double right-handers. Don't quite nail the first apex, don't quite nail the second one either, but crucially we'd managed to nullify the wheel spin that we were getting on the exit, and now we're half a second up on the best time that we've set so far. This is a critical corner and we just about get it right. We have to take a second stab at the steering, but we've gone green in the middle sector, so we're doing well as things stand. 2 more corners to go, nailing the apex there on that corner, and now into this last corner we completely missed the apex there, but we're going to just set ourselves up for a dash now down to the line. We've got 40% of the battery to go. We're up by about 9 tenths of a second on our previous best lap, and we'll make that 1 second as we cross the line for pole position. Alright then, it is time for the Portuguese Grand Prix, but before we get into the race, let's have a look and see where everybody qualified going into this Grand Prix. We're going to be starting the race from pole position with a 1 minute 13.108, which just ruins a McLaren front row lockout as George Russell is second ahead of Valtteri Bottas in P3. It's another strong qualifying session for Sam, starting in 4th for Ferrari ahead of the 2 Porsche drivers of Rees and Charles Leclerc. Sebastian Vettel gets in the mix, starting in P7, just in front of the 2 Audi drivers, who once again start P8 and P9 for the second race running, but this time Carlos Sainz outqualifies Max Verstappen, all of them just over 3 tenths of a second off of the pole position lap time. A difficult qualifying for Lando Norris. He starts only 10th for Ferrari, ahead of my teammate Oscar Piastri, who starts 11th. Then it's the 2 Mercedes of Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton, separated by 6/1000ths of a second. And then we've got a bit of a gap between Hamilton and Albon of around about 3 tenths of a second from those 2 drivers. Sergio Perez, a disappointing P15 for Red Bull, with Daniel Ricciardo starting in 16th. Another disappointing qualifying session for him. He would have hoped to have been a bit further up as he qualifies 2/1000ths of a second clear of Liam Lawson, who has also had an unusually disappointing qualifying session. The 2 BMWs are up next, with Stoffel Van Dorn out-qualifying his teammate Ollie Behrman, with Pierre Gasly unfortunately starting stone dead last for the Portuguese Grand Prix. Alright then, it is time for the race here for the Portuguese Grand Prix. As you can see, there is rain forecasted to come for this Grand Prix, but I'm not quite sure when that is going to be. Obviously, we've got 4 bars worth of wet weather, so expect it to arrive. But here we are then on the grid, starting from pole position. We've got the 5 lights that are on, the 5 lights are off, and let's get this race going then. So it's a decent start from us, a great start though from Russell. He goes side by side with us down towards turn 1, but into the first corner we get ahead of George Russell. Going into the first corner, that is Valtteri Bottas that's overtaken George Russell going into the first corner. But for us though, we lead the Portuguese Grand Prix as we tentatively make our way through the exit of the first sector. Bottas is behind us as we make our way down towards the hairpin now, and just a little bit wide there, missing the apex actually. That's going to give Bottas a little bit of impetus to try and find a way through here. Looking very racy at the start here is Valtteri. He's overtaken his teammate and he's already on the back of us now as we make our way through this part of the track. That's not how you take that corner as we clatter the curb there. Bottas trying to find a way through as we're struggling a little bit to get into the swing of things in this Grand Prix. These drivers certainly not giving me any time to adjust into the track conditions here, and Bottas trying to have a look again down the inside, but we'll cover that one off as we go through the end of the middle sector and braking late now going into these final few corners. Definitely not settled at all in the opening lap here. We're still going to lead it by the time we get to the start finish line, but as things stand at the moment, we are definitely not comfy here as we round the final corner, and we're going to lead the first lap of the Portuguese Grand Prix. Bottas is second, Russell down to third, but Russell is trying to have a look at his teammate Bottas here. Russell goes to the outside towards the first corner. Down they go into turn 1. Who's late on the brakes? Russell's going to be the latest one on the brakes. He re-overtakes his teammate Bottas, and that's George Russell now up into second for the Portuguese Grand Prix. As for us though, We are staying in the lead as things stand, but it was not a comfortable first lap, and that's going to be difficult for the rest of the race here. Having a look at the race start now, you can see that we didn't quite get an amazing getaway versus George Russell, but we were able to take the racing line. Russell completely backs out of it and gives us all of the room that we need to make our way through and comfortable here. This is on board with Reese now in his start. He didn't have a good start at all. Didn't get away off the line brilliantly. Charles Leclerc is going to pass him, but crucially for Reese, he is on that outside line, but annoyingly for him, Charles Leclerc doesn't quite back out of it like George Russell did versus Valtteri Bottas there, but Reese hangs it around the outside and makes a lovely move to get back in front there. So despite the bad start, he was able to make do with what he had. This is on board with George Russell. Clean getaway from Russell in the first phase there. The secondary phase, though, we come back at Russell, and you can see that we just swipe through in the first corner. Russell completely backs out of it. Fortunate for him, he didn't lose any more places there and was obviously ultimately eligible to get past, Bottas then, going through into the next part of the lap here as we make a mistake there, going a little bit late on the brakes and going wide into the gravel. That's given Russell a chance to attack us now, down into the middle sector, but we'll cover that one off. But again though, only on lap 2 of this Grand Prix, we are so badly unsettled in this race, we can't get the braking right into these corners at the moment, and we're struggling with the rear end traction as well. We're just not quite getting this car hooked up like it was for that lap in qualifying, as here comes Russell again, trying to find a way through now on the inside into the last corner, but we'll use the battery that we've got deployed against it to go for it now. But on the run here, up the start-finish straight now, this is going to be a good chance for Russell to come at us here with the DRS. He sets the fastest lap of the race. Now multiple people are setting it too. Here comes George Russell, DRS enabled, down towards turn 1. We'll brake later than Russell. Give him enough room, give him the space there, but enough that we can hold the position and stay in the lead of the Portuguese Grand Prix. But we're under some massive pressure now, and on to lap 3 of the Grand Prix to end it. To start lap 4, we're going to be under more pressure here because Russell is going to go for it, but we've actually had a great run through that final bank corner. Fastest lap of the race is ours. Now all of a sudden there's a fight here between Bottas and Russell as we go in towards turn 1. We'll be clear from that fight, and they actually didn't swap places there, so I was hoping that they might have done so and built myself a little bit of a gap just to allow me to... Actually, no, they did swap places. Bottas is in front of Russell now, so the two McLarens swapping places again, but it's a good run here from Bottas on the exit of that corner, down towards turn 4. He's going to go for it. Late braking around the outside, but we'll cover that one off by just allowing the car to float through the corner a little bit quicker, but we're under massive pressure now in this Grand Prix, and this is only lap 4, so we really need to get our act together. And again, we're just bumping onto that sausage curb and just not making the car work the way that we want to right now. But as things stand, we still have control as things stand at the moment, but unfortunately for us, we're not going to have control of it for much longer though, because on lap 4 of the Grand Prix, the back end has come out on us as we exited the corner onto the curb, and from pole position and leading the first 4 laps, we are right back down to the bottom of the grid, to last place out of them all. The disaster for us. I just lost the rear end on the exit, and now on lap 8 of the Grand Prix, we're now in 19th place because I think one of the Jaguars have retired from this Grand Prix. We're now last, and we need to try and make some moves here in this Grand Prix. So first things first, we're going to go down the inside here of Pierre Gasly. Job done on the Renault driver. Now we need to focus on the BMW driver of Ollie Behrman. Lap 10 of the Grand Prix, you can see now the rain is starting to fall here in Portimao. So that rain that was forecasted has arrived as we're now going to try and late break it down around the outside actually of the BMW driver. This will be good if we can pull this one off on Van Dorn here as we now get accelerating with the traction here, and we're going to pass off Van Dorn quite nicely actually, going through into the middle sector there. So we'll take that one. That's a lovely overtake there as we just defend the position there against Ollie Behrman. Sorry, not Ollie Behrman, Van Dorn. My apologies there. And now to lap 11 of the Grand Prix here. We're going to have a look here and see if we can try and find a way past Daniel Ricciardo. Braking nice and late here, but a little bit too late for my liking as the track conditions get worse now. We're just struggling even more than we have been in this Grand Prix. Van Dorn's trying to find a way past. We can't keep the car on the track at the moment, let alone try and make a pass or defend the position. Right now, it's all about keeping the car on the track on the lap 12 of the Grand Prix. That's exactly what we're going to do. Come into the pits for a set of the intermediate compound tyres. DRS has been disabled. We've actually done this at the right time. But looking back at the issue with my spin, I just got on the exit curb and the car just spun round. I genuinely had control of the car. I didn't feel the back end sliding. I just felt the car was controlled into the corner and I just put the throttle down way too early. That's literally my own driver error. And it's cost me, obviously, because right now, I'm trying to fight back in this Grand Prix. I don't really have good pace at the moment in this race. I'm really struggling, but I haven't done myself any favours by being a complete prat. Lap 16 of the Grand Prix, we're trying to catch up to the Jaguar driver in front of us as one of the Porsche drivers directly behind us. That is Charles Leclerc that was the driver behind me. Just for reference, he has had to stop later in the Grand Prix, which has meant we've gained some positions, but more problems for Porsche. They are constantly having problems with reliability, and Charles Leclerc is out of the Portuguese Grand Prix. But onto lap 18 of the race now. We're back on board myself here. Up front is Liam Lawson. So how things have played out is that some drivers pitted a lap earlier than the rain was due, and that's actually benefited us because we're now in 11th place, now trying to fight for P10 here. We've actually undercut quite a lot of drivers. At this stage of the race, we've got some decent pace in the wet here, so we're going to attack Lawson now, go to the outside of the Jaguar driver, and unfortunately crush their hopes and dreams of trying to get a point in this Grand Prix. Up into 10th place now, and just in front of us is Lando Norris in the Ferrari. So now we're going to try and set sail and go after him in this race. And unfortunately though, onto lap 33 of the Grand Prix, I tried everything I could to catch him as the back end steps at me again, but I just didn't have the pace in this wet phase. I was quick to start with, way quicker than the guys behind me. I dropped all them, but the leaders in front, unfortunately, absolutely flew clear. So Valtteri Bottas is going to be your race winner in a very shortened Portuguese Grand Prix. So credit where it's due for Valtteri Bottas, who has won this Grand Prix. As for us though, we have to pay for making our own mistakes, and we finish down in P10, and that is a disaster of a race, and unfortunately a disaster of a recording because I lost a lot of it. Apologies again, I really do apologise. You know, it is what it is. But Valtteri Bottas did win the Portuguese Grand Prix. To be honest, not much happened after the rain fell because a lot of drivers pitted either the lap that I did, which was a lap just before the rain, the DRS was disabled. When the DRS disabled, as per usual, then half the grid pitted, and then when the other half of the grid had to stay out, they all pitted, and there was enough of a gap between everybody that there was literally like no overtakes apart from George Russell. I think he overtook Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri because he lost out a lot of places from the battle earlier. That's one thing to note, is that Bottas was in front of Russell when the wet weather came, so Russell lost out massively in that because he was quick as well in the wet, but it is what it is. But for Bottas though, it's his first race win since swapping to McLaren from Red Bull from last season, so fair play to Bottas, he gets a win on the board. Crucially though, Reese has finished second in this race, and that's critical because of course in the last race he DNF'd from the Grand Prix and we finished in second. This time around Reese has got second, we've only got P10, sorry, so he will recut that point tally. Sam finishes in third for Ferrari. He did actually close the gap to Reese in the final few laps of the Grand Prix, but again with no DRS it was very difficult for him to get a run and overtake. Carlos Sainz finishes in fourth for Audi ahead of Sebastian Vettel for Red Bull, with George Russell finishing in P6. Oscar Piastri was 7th for Aston Martin, so he did a good job to get us some points. Lewis Hamilton finishes in 8th for Mercedes. Lando Norris was 9th for Ferrari, with myself only good enough for P10 at the end, with George Russell getting the fastest lap of the race with a 1:15.871. Looking at the second half of the table now, Liam Lawson finishes in 11th for Jaguar ahead of the two BMW drivers of Van Dorn and Behrman. A good result for the pair of them. Disappointing for Max Verstappen and for Kimi Antonelli. Both of them did not have a good run of things when it came to the wet weather period. Got screwed over by the pit stops and couldn't fight their way back from that point onwards. Daniel Ricciardo finishes in 16th for Renault, and Perez a difficult 17th for Red Bull, with Gasly way off in P18. It was Charles Leclerc and Alex Albon that were the two drivers that failed to finish, and yet another DNF for Porsche. They've got a quick car, but it is very unreliable. Now looking at the Drivers' Championship to see how things have changed in that area, we are now still top of the Drivers' Championship, which is key, but the problem is we have not taken advantage of the fact that we built ourselves a buffer in the last race, because Reese has now cut that right back down again. So we're down to 15 points now in the Drivers' Championship with, I believe, 6 races to go in the season. There's still plenty of twists and turns to come, and that championship battle is getting ever closer. George Russell stays third in the championship for McLaren. He is on 136 points, only 43 points off in the Drivers' Championship. He'll also be ruining the fact that the rain disturbed his strategy, because if he could get a first or a second in that race, he would have been only 30-odd points behind in the championship, and that would have put him into play. But for now, he's had to deal with the setback. Sam has moved up to 4th in the championship. He's now on 115 points, 64 points behind myself in the championship. A long way off, but it's not impossible with 6 races to go, if my maths is correct with that. Carlos Sainz is 5th for Audi on 107 points. He leapfrogs Lando Norris, who's only on 102 points. Despite scoring points, both Sam and Sainz scored a considerable amount more, and they jump in front. Charles Leclerc stays 7th in the championship, but he's now had that gap between himself and Vettel closed to just 4 points, with Bottas now leapfrogging Max Verstappen, who failed to score today, and Valtteri Bottas, picking up that race victory, moves on to 88 points. A key one for him, 91 points off in the championship. Verstappen slap bang on 100 points behind in the championship. The next event is going to be the F1 Journey Belgian Grand Prix, in which, like I said, I'll be clicking the save full race replay just to make sure if anything goes wrong in the future. Now, in the Constructors' Championship, there has been a change, but not at the top. Porsche still lead the way with 258 points, but that gap is now down to 34 points between themselves, and newly second in the championship, McLaren, who have leapfrogged us in for Aston Martin for P2 in the championship. We've been sitting in P2 pretty much all season long, but McLaren, they've been consistently scoring points with both their drivers, and with my little off-peak of form a couple of races ago, and obviously this race result here today, mixed with McLaren's race victory and their strong performance, has swung it back into their favour. Audi are only 5 points behind us in the championship as well, so we need to be watching out for them, and a further 3 points behind Audi is Ferrari. There is a massive 5-way Constructors' Championship battle here, with 53 points separating Ferrari in 5th and Porsche at the top. This is nowhere near over between any of these 5 constructors. Red Bull sit happy in 6th at the moment on 110 points. They have managed to score a nice 10 points today with Sebastian Vettel. Mercedes could only muster up 4 points, so they continue to edge away from them. Mercedes are on 79 points, as we have seen. Renault stay on 23 points, as would do Jaguar, and BMW are yet to score. But that is it for a shortened Portuguese Grand Prix. Let's go and have a look at the post-race notebook and see what the teams and drivers had to say after this Grand Prix. Taking a look at the post-race notebook today, and Valtteri Bottas gets his first win since leaving Red Bull and joining McLaren at the start of the season. Valtteri Bottas fought hard against his teammate George Russell and benefited by being the lead driver when the rain periods hit. After making the pit stop, he was able to control the gap between himself and Reese, who just about held off the charging Ferrari of Sam to take home P2 this weekend. Starting things off with Aston Martin and Tom, after getting pole position for the Portuguese Grand Prix, things in the race went horribly wrong, and Tom has admitted that he got his setup completely wrong and that he is now well aware that his rivals are very much on top of him. After the qualifying, things were looking great for Aston Martin and for Tom, but straight away they knew they were in a problem as soon as the car went into parc fermé, as they were definitely much quicker in the first sector, with the 2 straights being a key factor. But there was an instability within the car throughout the course of the rest of the lap, and issues under braking. This was something that they knew they had to just deal with for the rest of the weekend, and it turns out in the race it really hurt them hard. Looking back on it, Aston Martin definitely wanted to put some more downforce onto the car, and setup work is becoming an issue for this team, as it's not the first time that they've had a race weekend where the setup was the reason for their failure. Now, looking at Charles Leclerc, he is getting fed up with Porsche after yet another DNF. It doesn't seem to be anything more that Charles Leclerc can do in a Grand Prix apart from just hope that his car doesn't fail on him. And it's starting to take its toll on the driver, who says that he needs a break while he gets to grips with no longer being in championship contention. And Valtteri Bottas has thanked McLaren for his first win since joining the team. It's been a difficult period for McLaren with all the internal investigations going on currently, so this is something that the team definitely needed to at least give them a morale boost on track while all the drama goes on off the track. But that is it for the Portuguese Grand Prix. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like and subscribe if you're new around here as well, and I'll catch you guys next time for the Belgian Grand Prix. Take care all.